Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another edition of the Urban Entrepreneur Show. I am so excited about who I have as my guest for tonight. Why, you might ask? It's because this gentleman, I have admired his work for the past couple of years. He is just incredible. And I already have his website up, Your Legacy Filmmaker, which kind of gives you a little bit of clue as to who this gentleman is. But anyway, our show today is called Lights, Camera, Legacy. Crafting your brand narrative with storytelling brilliance. And no other person could possibly do this title of this show right, but my friend. He is called, I call him Lefty, but let me give you his real name. It's Lefteris Koutinas. And he is coming to us from Canada. And this guy is going to talk to us about how we can explore storytelling and intertwine it with our entrepreneurial branding strategies to create lasting impacts. And I think that also kind of synonymous with legacy. So Lefty is a visionary filmmaker and an entrepreneur who just brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. So get out your pens and pencils so you can take some notes on what it takes for you to create your own brand narrative with storytelling brilliance. So welcome to the Urban Entrepreneur Show.
What's up? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I am so excited that you decided to join us today. I really, really am.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? For me, I learn, I do, I teach, and it doesn't matter what stage I am at in my life, my business, whatever the case might be. I'm always gonna make the time to, you know, do exactly that. Do and teach and learn, right? So that's also another reason why we're here too, is to do those exact things. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy that you asked me on the show.
Well, like I said, I've admired your work, Lefty, for a couple of years now since I first was introduced to you.
Hmm,
And I mean, some of the work that you've done is is absolutely brilliant. But
thank you.
first of all, you have kind of an interesting name. Can you share with us a little bit about the genesis of it?
Yeah, so my background's Greek through and through, 100%. I'm not a mix of anything, and my name in Greek actually means freedom. And it I think it works very well, even though my parents probably didn't decide to name me that, when they had me. But I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing right now, or what I'm at least attempting to do, is free up a lot more entrepreneurs, get them out of the rat race and the misconception
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
having to create tons and tons and tons of content just to get their message across and get their message seen. Um, and then, of course, the other thing with in the Greek culture, which happens a lot in European cultures, is that we are well, the firstborn boys are always named after your father's father. So that's another reason how and why I got my name.
Wow, that is so cool. Naming conventions, in all parts of the world are often very different, and I'm always fascinated by the genesis of names.
Yeah.
So, Lefty,
Hmm.
your um your website is the Legacy Filmmaker. So tell us, How did you get started?
Well, my parents, well, my whole entire family actually, my grandfather and my grandmother when they were alive too, they were in radio and television broadcasting. So
Oh,
I was born into a family of entrepreneurs, ones that dominated, radio and television for roughly about 40 years.
wow.
And growing up, I got to go pretty much growing up. I not only got to go to a bunch of events, concerts, I pretty much was around radio booths, television studios. Like I grew up in that world. But when I hit my teen years, it it wasn't something that I wanted to do.
Mm,
I was like, you know what? It's cool. It's great. I love what my parents do, but I feel like I just want to do my own thing. And that's actually how I got into music. I got into actually being a DJ, and I fell in love with I fell in love with house music. And we're talking the old school house music because I was like downloading stuff in the 90s, which is like the good stuff. And
absolutely. I totally agree.
yeah, yeah, you had like Todd Terry, Marshall Jefferson, to throw some names around. And I grew up on those pioneers of house, right? And that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to play it, remix it, do anything and everything that I possibly can with it. Um, and that's essentially what happened. I built my name as a DJ.
Mm,
And I always find that even through music, although I'm not using my words to communicate, I'm using music to communicate. And when I was starting, it was tough at the beginning, only because you're trying to make a name, you're trying to get out there. You're at times you're given like 30 to 45-minute sets, and like, it's hard to get a crowd going in 30 minutes, right?
mhm, mhm,
So as my career progressed, it was now 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 5 hour. I went up to I went up to 8 hours in playing straight.
oh my
And I
gosh.
realized that, okay, I have God knows how many people in front of me. 100 people, 500, 1,000, 5,000.
Mhm,
I need to keep these people engaged for the duration that I'm on.
mhm,
So I actually started kind of using the hero's journey and incorporating that into how I was building my sets. And how I built my sets was essentially I was in control of whether I wanted to slow you down or speed you up, and at what time and for how long. And it actually was really, really funny because I, as much as I was like incorporating that principle, I didn't know what I was really getting into. I just thought, oh, I can use melodies to like build emotion and all that. But it wasn't until I was 19 years old and I went to Miami for the first time, and I was DJing in Miami at the time. Um, Funny enough, I was still younger than the age group that you can get into clubs, but I was performing, so it was a different story. And I just saw how I people watch, and I just watched how people reacted to certain songs, to certain instruments. And for anybody that's been to Miami, it's a completely different beast. It's a whole new world. It's like Alice in Wonderland, right? So being able to have those experiences and kind of bring it into my craft, it really excelled me to where I wanted to go. And then that took me into further personal branding, where it's like, okay, I can't use my words. So I clearly have to become a personal brand through attire and through action. And there were certain things and cues and that I started doing when I was performing that signaled what was going to happen while I was on stage. And the way I even dressed on stage also gave people an indication of the type of mood that they were going to get that day or that evening. And that's kind of how I started really getting into, you know, really understanding personal branding. But to take it back a little bit, it was a specific conversation that I had with my grandfather when I was 13, and he sat down and he's like, "Look, you're going into high school.
Mhm.
You're pretty much going to be, you know, meeting new people and starting work eventually, and all these things are going to come up really, really quickly." And he said to me, he goes, "As long as the people love you, you'll never be out of work."
Wow. Okay.
And that has always been my mission. As long as the people love me, I will never be out of work. And it doesn't matter what I do to make you love me. As long as you love me, I will always be here. And it's I've built morals around it. I've built ethics around it. I've built like my family dynamic around it. And it's just been like super positive, you know?
So
Because
good.
like I don't know like what kind of age group we're talking about, but with your show here, but I mean, who wants to buy from an asshole?
Maybe another one?
Right, there you go.
Oh, wow. That is really some background that that you've shared with us. And I could see where DJing and your background in music, those kind of influences, looking at sets and how you can, change moods and things like that with people. I could see how something like that could actually support what you're currently doing with storytelling and filmmaking.
Mm.
So, can you share how you've been able to connect what you've done in the past with what you're currently doing now?
Yeah, so I mean, it was actually, I remember it like it was yesterday, like having that conversation with my wife and just being like, I'm gonna leave DJing. I'm not gonna do it anymore. I want to be home more. I don't want to be coming home at like 8 o'clock in the morning anymore. I don't want to waste my days. I don't want to waste my nights. I need to do something creative.
Mhm.
And I picked up a camera for the first time 10 years ago. And honestly, like I just always I just always knew that I had a connection with people based on how I made them feel,
Mhm.
right? And it's no different when you're trying to get your message across, right? Like it's no different when you're creating a piece of content. You need somebody to feel something, and the best way to make somebody feel something is through storytelling,
Right.
right? You hear a lot of coaches out there that always say like, people buy people, and that's partially true. I actually look at it as people buy stories. Whoever has the better story wins, right?
Mm.
And you can kind of think about that in everyday life, right? You go to a bookstore, you're going to buy the book based on the best story.
Yes.
You go to the movies, you're going to watch a movie based on the best story. You're probably selecting a coach or a service or a product based on the best story, right? So when you can start kind of, understanding that the product and the service is only a part of the
Mhm.
story and it's not the story, a lot of people's content will change immediately and more or less overnight.
Wow, that is something. So, you just had, you just, gave us some compelling reasons on leading with stories. And so, given that, and this is the Urban Entrepreneur Show, how can urban entrepreneurs um, effectively incorporate storytelling into their branding strategies so that they can connect more with their audiences?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to to make a story, right? Like I like to start, especially for somebody who doesn't have the best experience with, with thinking about what to say and how to say it,
Mm-hmm.
is start with experience, right? Start with
Okay, tell me
experience.
more about that. What does that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I wake up in the morning. I drink a specific brand of coffee. Let's just call it Folgers now so everybody can understand, right? Everybody more or less has had a cup of Folgers or still drinks Folgers coffee. And if I'm going to create a video, for example, I can create a video where it was like, you know, the Folgers coffee cup that changed my entire life, or the Folgers coffee cup that led me to close that $1 million deal, right? Now, I'm not only getting people interested in $1 million, but I'm also getting people interested in the kind of coffee that I drink. And they're probably Folgers. And if they drink Folgers too, they're probably going to be more intrigued and they're probably going to want to work with me just based on similar interests. Right. And then I can go into that whole thing where it's like, I remember it. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a gloomy summer morning. There was a bit of fog on the ground because it had rained the day before. And I just remember feeling like I just down. I felt just very sluggish. Like today was not going to be my day
Mm-hmm.
until that one message came through in my inbox. And guys, this didn't actually happen. I'm literally making this up as I go. So it's just it's just tie experiences first with what you want to talk about, right? It doesn't matter. You went for a bike ride, you scraped your knee. I want to know about that. Because guess what? I used to cycle and I've scraped my knee before too. So guess what? We automatically now have something in common. We have something to talk about, right? Me,
Very
I play
interesting.
video games. My whole system is right behind me, right? That is something that I do to wind down. And believe me, I'm probably not the only 37, 38-year-old business owner who also plays video games.
Mm-mm.
So you got to think about things that circulate your life that you can create an experience out of, and that you can just talk about it, right? One thing that I never understood, because I came from a little bit of an older school mentality, even though I'm still fairly young,
Mm-hmm.
was when Instagram first came out, I literally was like, so you're telling me that 10,000 people give a shit about what this guy drinks in the morning? Right? Like people just want to know that stuff, you know? So it doesn't always have to be like 3 reasons why your business is failing, or let me give you my 5 tips on how to make your first 5K. Like if you're just going to sit there and be a fact checker, you're probably not going to go very far, and you're only going to go far with other fact checkers. But seeing as we buy emotionally and we
Mm.
justify with logic after, you're not gonna get as many sales as you think you are if you just put the story first.
I, just listening to you, Lefty, I'm starting to think about, like the things that I tend to do. And when you were talking about your coffee, well,
Hmm.
I love going walking. I love going walking in the morning.
Me
And
too.
I walk through this particular park, and many times there are Canadian geese there. There are mallard ducks in the, and I'm always taking pictures of them.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have like a real camera. I mean, I use my iPhone, but but it makes me happy just doing that. And I'm starting to think, wow, how can I incorporate my walking and seeing my feathered friends and sometimes a deer and sometimes,
Yeah.
how can I incorporate that? So that's a really good tip for entrepreneurs just to start to think about what is it that you're doing in your day?
Yeah, and I can go a little deeper into that
Mhm,
too, right? Like I know probably there could potentially be some people that are listening that are in my Facebook group. There's
mhm,
probably others that are not. But I made a post about this today in my group where I essentially said the moment you hit post or share or submit or whatever button they're giving you,
mhm.
the content is dead. The content is dead from the moment that you post it. But what doesn't die is something that you physically experienced, right? Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whether you love him or not, he made his first documentary called Pumping Iron in 1977, I believe it
Mhm,
was.
mhm.
That documentary only reached about a million people. Okay, but we're still talking 1977, so a million people is
Yep.
technically going viral back then,
That
right?
that was going viral. Mhm.
That was going viral. But then it later got re-released on YouTube in 2012, and now it reached 4.6 something million people. And then it
Wow.
got re-released again in I believe 2021, and that number almost doubled again. And and why is it still being shared 40 years after its initial release? It's because what happened to Arnold in 1977 doesn't change. You can't, and you hear it all the time. You can't change the past.
Right.
So even if he talks about something now in 2024 of what he did in 1977, it's still relevant 40 years later. But your three reasons why video is relevant no later than 72 hours. And I'm even being very kind and modest by saying that. So
Oh my.
so you got to think about it like this, and I say it all the time when people are having conversations with me. Oh, Lefty, I just started my business. I don't know if I'm ready for a documentary. Excuse me, how old are you? Oh, well, I'm 45 years old. Yeah, you've been 45 years in the making. What do you mean you're not ready for a documentary? I don't care that you've only been a business owner for a year. You have 45 years of stories and experiences to share with your audience that even at 80 are still going to be relevant than they are today. And that's also the power of documentary filmmaking and storytelling, is because it's evergreen, and it's
Mhm.
like evergreen in the truest form. And you're also going to find yourself having to post less, because a documentary doesn't fight algorithms. It doesn't fight trends. It is literally timeless. And
Wow.
if you can start understanding and realizing that timeless content leads to legacy, that's when so many more doors are going to open up, right? And the best thing, and the best example I can give are TEDx speakers. You might be a
Yeah.
TEDx speaker, whoever's listening, you might not be, but you watch a TED talk. Are they talking about their product?
No.
No, they're talking about the time they went to jail. They're talking about the time they almost died in a car accident. They're talking about the time that their wife probably, had a miscarriage, and that led to wanting to start a business or whatever.
Mhm.
It's all stories, right? So this is kind of, and of course, the problem that we have too is that we are so brainwashed to think of instant gratification that the lines are blurred at past anything 90 days. You, like, if I told you, hey, I can make sure you can make $1 million or $10 million or $30 million 30 years from now, you physically can't see it. But for some reason, if I tell you you can make 5K in 30 days, you can see that. And
Mhm.
that's the mind shift that I'm trying to help people kind of navigate through currently.
Wow. Like I said, you're really, you know, if for nothing else, I'm telling you, you're giving me a lot to think about. You know?
Good. I'm glad. I'm
So,
glad. I'm happy.
as we're just kind of, as I'm kind of processing through a lot of what you were saying, it seems like there seems to be a lot of collaboration that you have to do with the entrepreneur or with the person that you're creating this legacy film for, this documentary. So, could you just provide an example of how the type of engagement that you were talking about surrounding a documentary film um, has impacted the success of what you've already done? Because I know that you did a documentary on a colleague of ours, Tawan, and I saw little bits and clips of it, bits and pieces of it. And it was like, oh my God, because his story is almost surreal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get into Tuan's story after the explanation. So I have three different types of services essentially. I have films that I can do in a day. I have my 48-hour film offer, and then of course we get into larger projects like feature films, short films, and adaptations.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't matter if I'm spending a day with you or if I'm spending 6 months with you. I'm giving the same I'm giving the same lefty attention to
Mhm.
everything, right? Um there People are starting to kind of say that there's like a lefty look, right? And people are slowly starting to kind of like, I guess, point out that if you see something on the internet, even if you've never seen my name before, you kind of know that that's a lefty film, right? Um, and the reason why that happens is because I like being a one man band. I edit all my projects, and nobody can do what I do. Yes, of course, everybody, like anybody with half a brain, can edit a video, but from a director's standpoint, you're getting a director's cut specifically for me, right? And that's essentially, what you're investing in when you come to me for these things. Now, the process is very simple. We first get to know you. We first get to know about your story. Do you even have a story, right? Because we're not in the business of ads. We're not in the business of video sales letters. We're not product pushers. So there first has to be a story. And if you can pass that preliminary round of the pre-approval stage, then we work on actually dissecting the needs and wants of the film, which will lead us to pre-production, right? What pre-production will essentially cover all the logistics. It'll tell us what budgets we need to work with in order to make client
Mhm.
A or Mr. Prospect's vision come to life. And that's another reason why, when people ask me for a ballpark, I can never tell them,
Mm.
because I can have two entrepreneurs asking for the same exact thing, except one video can be 10 grand, one video can be 100 grand, one video can be $1 million, and it's the same product, right? But it's
So
just because
how can that? I don't. So I don't. That doesn't add up for me. So
right.
give me the distinction on that one.
Amazing. And I love that you asked that, right? So let's say let's say I have a car salesman, right? I have a car salesman. He wants to talk about, the triumphs and the struggles of his car dealership. And it's just going to be, an interview process to get his story done. We're going to spend a couple days with him. We might even, interview some people walking through the door and asking them what they think about the dealership. And then you have the same car salesman, with which deals with exotic vehicles,
Mm.
and he's a little bit more of an action taker, and he wants to drive a Lamborghini off of the 50th floor of a building and jump out in parachute,
Okay.
right? That's how it's the same product, but one is $10,000, one's going to be $1 million,
Oh yeah,
right? Because
especially with
now
the
we're dealing with
liability insurance.
logistics. We're dealing. Was that?
I said, especially with the liability insurance.
Well, yeah. There you go. So like the way I like to say things is, I can make anything you want happen. I am I am not I am not tied down. I am not somebody who doesn't have access to the right resources and the right material. Really, when you're coming to work with me, the world truly is your oyster, and it's just a matter of, can you can you make it happen, because I know I can make it happen.
But Lefty, that just kind of, as as I'm listening to you, you said basically like the first cut on whether or not you even work with someone is whether or not they have a story. And then, but earlier you said that, basically everybody has a story. I mean, if you've lived for any length of time, right, you already have a story. And so I'm, I- I'm thinking that many people, oh, excuse me, I have hiccups, that many people don't really think that they have a story worth telling.
So that is not a factor. It's not a matter of a story worth telling. It's more so people get confused with topic and story. A lot of people that come to me also come to me with a topic, and they think it's a story. And there's a big misconception,
Mm,
right? So that's what differentiates how the market is gonna, are they gonna jump at the fact of listening to it, or are they not,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Now, again, if you did want to go that route where people don't think their story is worth telling, you know
Or they have a story worth I mean, like I think what you indicated earlier was that everybody has a story. They've lived for any length of time. But whether it's something that's worth telling, first of all, and then secondly, how is that going to impact my business? Because maybe the people that you're talking to are not in business. I doubt it very seriously. But how can they then take a story that they don't even think is worth telling, and then um, turning that into an asset that is not only part of their legacy, but also something that they can leverage for their business?
well, that's where the magic happens, because that's where my skills and expertise allows me to pull out all this awesome information from you, to do the very, very best that I can to find those deeper roots. Well, now, it's not up to me to tell you, hey, I don't think this is gonna happen, right? It's I'm like the surgeon, and you're on the table. I am gonna do everything in my power to make sure that you stay alive. I'm gonna do everything in my power. I'm gonna ask every question in the book, even if that means that you gotta cry on Zoom with me because we're getting deep and emotional. I'm going to pull anything and everything I can from you to really, truly make sure that you have something that people want to hear and need to hear, right?
Wow. Wow.
Now, have there been times, where I have to leave the operating table and go to the person's family and say, sorry, they didn't make it? Absolutely. But, that's very, very, very few people, uh, very few people I, I have to, reject. And
Mhm.
that's kind of also because as I'm putting out more material, as people are seeing the stuff that I'm doing and how I'm presenting myself, they almost pre-qualify themselves,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? They pre-qualify themselves, so I don't have to do the massive texting and the send 50 DMs a day and all that. Um, and I'm also a little picky. Sometimes I could be a lot picky, and I do more of the direct messaging, myself, because I like to look at myself also as an investigative journalist. So I'm out there looking for the best story also. So that's another way that you can kind of fall into my lap. I am creeping, even if you don't know I'm creeping.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm
So
in the background. I'm in the shadows.
so again, Lefty, I'm like I said, I'm really starting to appreciate even your processes even more so. But again, if we're talking to urban entrepreneurs, we're talking to
Mm,
entrepreneurs in general.
mm,
um it seems like balancing the creativity that you have, or balancing creativity in general with business, okay, can be sometimes a little bit challenging, especially for urban filmmakers, or for people who do film in the city, or people that want to work with entrepreneurs that are in the city. So what type of advice could you give an entrepreneur that may want to travel this road with you, or explore creating their legacy project?
yeah, even though the investments for these types of things are upfront, the first thing that I always tell everybody
Mhm.
is, I need you to have fun. That I need you to have fun. I need you to walk in just doing a cool project and looking at it literally as just a cool project. Take your mind out of ROI, take your mind out of sales, out of booked calls, out of all that stuff. Because if it doesn't hit tomorrow, it might hit a year from now. It might hit 3 years from now. It's Think about it like YouTube. You're using your film essentially as a search engine. Do you know how many times now, if even yourself, you were to be like, hey, Lefty, tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah, here, watch my trailer. Yeah, here, watch my short film about me.
Mhm.
Right?
Well,
So,
I did some of that.
well, there you go. So it's constantly paying dividends, and it's literally, your documentary is almost like your business card. You're always going to share it. You might not always get a sale from it, or it might not always lead to something fantastic and incredible. But even if you had a crappy day at a networking event with 500 other entrepreneurs, did you still hand out your business card? You 100% absolutely did.
Mhm.
So it's no different than this. And you can end up handing out your business card once and striking gold, or it might take you 5 years to continuously hand out business cards until you strike gold. But no matter what, you are always going to strike gold. And I
Mhm.
love that about YouTube, and I use YouTube as a platform. And this finally backs up the I guess backs up the methodology that I was having with YouTube is I finally now, after almost 3 years of being on the platform, I had comments come in from videos that I posted 3 years ago. And I literally thought that the moment I posted that, give or take 30 days, and it's dead. Right? Now, imagine having your film on on YouTube.
Mm.
You're going to constantly share it, you're going to constantly get views, you're going to constantly get comments. Not only that, it really all depends on also what your goal is, because my superpower is turning entrepreneurs into celebrities. So, yeah, we are taking the film festival routes. I am doing everything in my power, if it's something that you want to do, to get yourself on a streaming platform, whether it's an indie platform or it's Prime Video, or heck, maybe you have a really, really, really incredible story and we're doing a Netflix pitch. But
Wow. And that's
I'm
something that you do with your people? You do all of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I start any project, my first statement is we have to have fun. My first question after the first statement is what's the goal?
Okay.
Right? What's the goal of the film? And I don't mean goal of the film as in like I want to make $100,000. Like I'm talking about personal goal, personal branding. What do you want to do with yourself? Because if you turn around and say, okay, I want to get on Netflix, cool. We're going to need this size of crew. We're going to need to hire actors to do adaptations, to recreate scenes of footage that we might not have. Like, and I'm going to blah, 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 go through the entire list.
Wow.
We need certain camera specifications, because Netflix has a list of approved cameras that you can only use. So
Interesting.
yeah, there's so many things that are involved, but I do this in stages, from pre-production, production, post-production, and then distribution.
Hmm.
I'm not always a part of the distribution phase, because maybe somebody else, maybe they want to take care of their own, ads and marketing and all that jazz, which is fine, fantastic. But I always want to push your films to film festivals so you can at least win awards, and you can at least say, hey, my story won best picture, best documentary, best story, best trailer, best whatever.
Wow,
So
that's great.
yeah, yeah,
This, just what you said just a moment ago, just reminds me of like one of my mentors, Jim Edwards. And like,
yeah,
when um, I was working with him on my latest book, and that was one of his things. It's like, no, you need to not only create this book, but we need to make it an Amazon bestseller, New York Times bestseller, whatever bestseller. And so
mm,
that kind of aligns with what it is that you're talking about. There are so many avenues of distribution. There are so many places that people can go with their stories, again, with the right mentor and the right person guiding them. You know.
absolutely. and
Yeah.
and and the thing too is that it's a status game. you know what what I'm helping you do is I'm selling you access to the 1%. You know, I
Right.
want I want to guide you in the direction of creating certain films that get you into rooms with closed doors, that even get you in front of the 1% of the 1%, right? This is what I aim for. And again, whether it happens in a short period of time or it happens over the course of your career, the goal of where we want to get somebody is pretty much in areas and places that you never could imagine, and you probably would wonder how you even got there, because it's like a dream that you're living. You know what I mean? It's getting invited to off social events. Status comes from the personal brand. People always like to say, "Oh, I'm a millionaire. I'm a nine-figure earner, 10-figure earner." And they think that money is what gives them the status. No, money is the byproduct of the status. You
Mm.
have the status, then you get the money, then you get the power. It's not you get the money, then you get the status. It's the other way around. So you got to build that celebrity like status, even when you're broke, right? So
How
it's
interesting.
it's literally how people view you, how people depict you, how you put yourself out there into the world. If you want to put yourself out into the world in a certain way, you're going to start attracting those certain way people. Those certain way people are going to start opening up doors to you. Those open doors are going to lead to financing, are going to lead to money in your pocket. So as you can see, the money doesn't really come until stage 3 or 4 of the game.
Mm. And well,
So
some people can't, don't seemingly be able to wait that long. But like
problem.
I said, this has been a fascinating explore of I think that's a word. I think that is.
Yeah. And hey, you can always buy status once you get there, absolutely. But
Well,
yeah,
well, that part is true, but I'm also listening to what you're saying because one of the goals that I heard you mention is that you are looking to create a celebrity status for the people that you work with. And
correct.
so keeping that in mind, because we're getting to, I can't believe that we're almost at the end of the show.
I know.
um is can you just give our entrepreneurs, you know one or two suggestions on how they can create a celebrity status, and then how can they get in touch with you if they want to have this thing happen in a more professional way?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna reference Alex Harmozy for 1 minute. Alex says if if your competition is making 100 calls a day or putting out 100 emails a day, you need to be the person that puts out 200 emails, 200 phone calls. You
Mm,
always want to do double than your competition. So how you can start looking at it is, I always say that it's quality that scales you, it's quality that gets you. So if your competition is filming with iPhones, you go get yourself a Sony camera. If your competition is filming with Sony mirrorless cameras, then you go get yourself a full production team and a director that knows how to get you to the next step. If your competition has a team and a director is using still the mirrorless cameras, you go find a director that's working with cinema grade cameras for Hollywood. If your competition is using cinema line cameras, then guess what? You go find the guy that knows how to use the IMAX cameras. You always need to do whatever you got to do better than what your competition is doing always. I don't really look at there being competition, but if you have two coaches both fighting for the same attention and one's on an iPhone and one's on a $10,000 rig with the most beautiful picture quality and the most beautiful enhanced colors, who's that audience going to go to?
yeah, they're going to be attracted. Absolutely.
There
Like
you go.
mom and dad, they're going to be attracted to
There
to
you
the
go.
one who has
And that's it.
the more
And
perfect color. Yeah,
and that's it. Just always do better than the person that you feel like you're in the ring with.
that is so good. And how can people get in touch with you, Lefty?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you can follow all the content that I put out on my YouTube channel, which is Your Legacy Filmmaker, and you can also follow me on Facebook, which is my primary platform outside of YouTube, which is Lefteris Koutinas. It's my full name. And I'm sure the moment you just start typing left, you're gonna find me. And other than that, feel free to DM me. Feel free to hit me up anytime. I have my email pretty much plastered all over my YouTube channel for booking inquiries, and then of course you can hit me up on my landing page, yourlegacyfilmmaker.com, in which you can go check out some stuff that I've produced. You can go take a look at a couple of the testimonials that I have up there. And of course, you can, right from the landing page, book a call if you feel like you're ready to take those next steps in becoming the celebrity in your industry.
This is Lefty. This has been a wonderful, just time. This, first of all, learning even more about you, even though I've admired you from afar, to have a one-on-one conversation like this really does. First of all, it opens up, possibilities even for myself, but also for entrepreneurs that may not have even thought about what you're currently talking about right now. I could see where, doing, instead of spending a whole lot of money on doing some of the Facebook ads and all of that stuff, which can run into tens of thousands of dollars when you look over the course of a year, to then investing, talking to you and seeing what can be done to create the celebrity status that they are really looking for, that will also leverage their business and make them a celebrity in their own area. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
absolutely. And just to touch on one more thing as well, because I didn't get an opportunity to mention it, and I think it's the right time to, for those entrepreneurs that maybe aren't ready to go full throttle with hiring an entire cinema team to do everything for them. I also come into businesses as a fractional DP. What a DP stands for in the film industry is a director of photography. And I'm going to essentially I can come into your business and literally just be your chief content officer and help you develop your story, help you write up some scripts, and kind of get your feet going while you go out and start producing things that people are going to want to see and people are going to want to relate to. So I do that as well. So if that's something that somebody is interested in, where you're not really necessarily ready, uh, you can always have me join your team as a fractional DP and help you just start getting story content out there for you.
Well, again, thank you so much, Lefty.
Thank you.
I'm sure that, we'll have you back sometime.
Oh,
Again,
that's
where you can, talk, maybe it's something that's a little bit more seasonal, maybe toward the end of the year, when people are starting to think about what they're going to do for next year for promotion and marketing, or even something that they may want to do to wrap up the year, because, sometimes we do have money toward the end, toward the end of the year.
yeah.
And so, again, thank you. So,
No,
my
yeah, thank
friend,
you.
as we wrap up another exciting episode of the Urban Entrepreneur Show, I just want to thank my guest, Lefty Koutinas, for being with us today. Because the truth of the matter is, our passion on the Urban Entrepreneur Show is the thing that really drives us. We want to make sure that we bring some of the best people that we have access to um to you, so that you can listen, learn, and apply some of the things that they've said. So remember that our show was brought to you by Thrive Leadership Institute. We are your go-to source for coaching, training, and resources that will supercharge your personal and professional growth. You can find out more about us by going to thriveleadershipinstitute.com. And I can't close out this show without saying that if you are an urban entrepreneur, an entrepreneur that really just wants to give back, you have an amazing story to share, or some tips that may be able to pay it forward for others, then consider joining us as a guest on the Urban Entrepreneur Show, because we're all about sharing wisdom and experiences that will inspire. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us by going to the urbanentrepreneurshow.com, and there you can find out more about the show. You can find out more about us, and you can sign up to be a guest. So until the next time, I am Anna Banks, your host, wishing each of you a grand good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So until then, bye bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks, Lefty.